this is setting on this, which is why and the first two are on carpet. And this one ended up here. So let me do my introductions and then I'll explain why I'm talking about this. Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core New Core, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor. So if the sound comes from the vibration of the bowl and the quality of the vibration and the length of how long it lasts, because to me that's what I notice having gotten up here, is that it not only makes the vibration, but because of the isolation of it, the lack of a dampening effect, it lingers that much longer. It takes longer to die out. And I've often compared doing Pilates to the striking of a tuning fork. You know, you come in and you're all focused and you do your Pilates, and that sets up this vibration that you leave with. And to the extent that that becomes a routine, you find a frequency that works for you. I hear you. Let me do it again. It may take too long to notice, but the first two fade away faster than the one that's on a harder surface. You know this. What's my point, of course, is that the way you instruct is a manner not only in how you set up the vibration in the student, but the environment in which you set up the vibration to happen. Like you put the bowl on top on a wood surface instead of carpet. See? I'm not making a big point. I'm just saying that that kind of stuff applies. All right, so hold on. I got 6 things as titles, too many, and then the last thing became the first thing when I was just really, as a title, asking, are you ready for reality? Maybe I need the word some in there too. Because in America, it's a common advertising song to say, are you ready for some football? And that's what came to my mind in looking at this, to the point where it will be a title in Facebook over the top of the 6 items. So, are you ready for some reality? And if not, you know, please, the great thing about a recording is that you get to choose when to watch it and how long to watch it. And having watched as much as you want, that's all any person could ask for. You're ready for reality. And I would say, as an instructor, or me saying to you, MMP is a reality-based view of Pilates that considers biology and the physics in which it happens. To understand, or to try to understand, what's going on. So number one, this is the first recording I'm putting out there after on Facebook. I had a couple of my friends on Facebook ask me to forward to them any old Joe recordings. And because my group of friends seems to be into that more than not. Different parts of the country or the world, for sure. And understanding that I'm promoting self-aggrandizement by those who share Joe's work in their name. My point to you is that in all of Joe's classical work, there is what it is without any explanation, to the point that it lives in a world of mystery and the unknowable, right? It's something that's undescribable. There you go, another good adjective. Undescribable. Excuse me for doing that, but that's just too good. Undescribable, unknowable, only for some to know, right? That whole thing, those adjectives are indicative of occult. Just, I mean, that's common knowledge if you look up or understand the difference between how you portray something. And an MMP, as a point of view, it doesn't come from that point of view, at least I don't think it does, unless you consider science a cult. And then I would say yes, because MMP puts its box around biology and the physics in which it happens, reproducible results, and needs to limit the interpretation to that, because that's what it's based on. So when looking at original work, there's a lot of ways to look at it, but with the MMP point of view, it's an ideal point of view of Pilates, and can be a great facilitation to you if you're aware of the ideal, so that you can recognize it, if it exists at all, in what you see of Joe's video clips, that you are given see behind the curtain, add two and two. So the good thing about what I have to offer you is a point of view that can enhance your viewing of any Pilates, any movement that's attached to the word Pilates, and recognize or evaluate it at least through the distinction of what you know about the ideal versus whatever else you know, or whatever else you see that's new. But when you see Joe's original stuff, imagine how confident you must feel if you have an awareness of the ideal and you see something of Joe's work and you see the ideal, Joe doing his thing, and in doing his thing, it's the ideal coming out of it, right? That's all I'm doing. MMP is just pointing a light at the ideal that comes straight out of Joe's work. Number 3. Oh no, number 2. God, I can't forget number 2. Number 2 is a question. That's how I pose it. How is a good Pilates instructor invisible? How is a good Pilates instructor, maybe any Pilates instructor, but to what extent, as a Pilates instructor, is the nature of you being a Pilates instructor take in or encompass the nature of being invisible. Well, you know, I always like I hold the curtain open, and it feels like I'm pulling the drape aside. And so in that way, in pulling the drape aside to allow your student to get to what you're introducing them to, you're invisible in that you stand aside and you're not there to the extent that you facilitate something beyond yourself. There you go. How's that? Because if you weren't invisible, you'd be there and there would be something to you, and in a way it would be something about you that mattered, and yet to the extent that a Pilates instructor introduces their student or allows their student or enables their student to dive into their ocean of concentration, knowing what to listen to and to look for as sensation, because you as an instructor aimed them at that. And so another or an additional way or another aspect of that is that in knowing that you're introducing your student to an effort to completely coordinate their being, thinking, and observing. And it's not a big deal, really. I mean, anybody just would say, yeah, a person is there physically, they're a human being, they have being, and they have thinking, and they have thinking, and they have observing. And maybe thinking and observing is the same thing. But in some way, well, in Joe's words, he says body, mind, and spirit, and in MMP, that's taken to be being, thinking, and observing. And to the extent that you understand that observing connects you to the universe faster than light, you become invisible then as well, right? So when a person comes back up from their deep dive into themselves, the first thing their eyes look for is your eyes, as though to acknowledge or recognize that they've been somewhere, as though you could have been there just from sheer imagination of it. And in a way, that's true, right? Because as a Pilates instructor, more than not, maybe just a little bit, but you have some degree of experience in what you're reaching for as an experience. And so, as Yoda pointing your student into the cave of their sensation, you are invisible, to the point where when they make their dive, right, the last thing in the world to do is to assume ego, and like whatever you're going to say is going to matter more than the interaction your student is having with themselves. There we are, holding the curtain open or aside, right? So a person can dive into what you can never be part of. And so you keep your mouth shut and know when to keep it shut, because that's when you're being paid the most to do the knowing what not to do. That's a great feeling for me. It's not a star because there's not an interaction on the chest like we talked about last time. Number 3. From last time, I was talking about sharing core new tension, not core new tension, but the nature of the core, just rotation at the hips, and that the size of your grip matters compared to the size of your grip matters in strength. And as acting as a teacher, talking about Pilates, hoping to exchange something intellectually, right? When something clicked for them, it's a satisfying feeling, because as an instructor, you go along all the time, making your best effort to make connection with them towards what you're trying to connect them with. But it has to come from or be based in something that they already know to really make a sense of it, especially intellectually. Okay? And so, as an example of that, I was on tour, had a person one time, and they were older and distinguished, well-dressed, well-coiffed, not coiffed really, well, just came in good clothes. From the financial district. Okay. And the person was tall and a little, it stooped in their shoulders, and I was after core new tension in the shoulders and working on, and so we were on the pedipole, except I think we were on a pedipole. I don't know. The end of a Cadillac, a pedipole. We had spring tension out the arms, looking to find proper engagement of the shoulders and where the neck belongs. And I said that there's effort you have to put into your posture, like an investment you make in order to get a return. And for a financial person, they knew about investments to make in order to get something back, and that you make the investment that's small compared to what you hope to get back. Right? So by making a connection or a comparison to a world they could relate to, you know this too. And sometimes you don't even know the comparison that will be made from their experience that you know nothing about, like airplanes and balancing them so that they have the right amount of grip in the middle in order to fly right. Remember that was my question. So the question in number 3 is, what was a moment of insight for you just in your life? When did something go click, or when did you have an insight? When did you figure something out? Like riding a bicycle, or skates, or skateboard, or skiing, or snowboard, or whatever. A math puzzle, an answer to a riddle. Something that you didn't get until all of a sudden you did. Right? Insight. Or aha moments. In a big way, I think the Pilates instructor is trawling, acts like a trawler, with hooks of comprehension, trailing, and not knowing which hook at what depth will sink in or take hold. or get a connection to. See? The point I'm making there is which hook at what depth is that in the 55 minutes you have with a person you've never met before, especially for me, and yet the person that comes every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the last 12 years are still coming to do the same thing where you turn invisible, where they get a chance to dive into their own ocean of concentration. They get to concentrate on uniform eccentric loading flowing through progressive patterns of movement, which is the definition of MMP as the definition of the ideal within Joe's work. From the MMP point of view, if you want to say, oh yeah, I think it's an ideal too, but I look at it this way, okay, fine. I'm really interested. I am really interested because I want to know to what extent is your view of it as an ideal resonate with mine or not. See? Because from that, I think any essence that is there will be more clearly perceived. See? Number four. Core is a hip grip, literally. And so that's a lot of yesterday's discussion about reality and why I said, are you ready for some reality? Are you ready for some reality? Are you ready for some reality? That's going to be an MM promotional phrase someday. Are you ready for some reality? And core is a hip grip, literally. That's reality. And if you're not ready for reality, then that's fine. Just recognize that in the tsunami of Pilates passion, I think there's pressure to explore your passion and be inclined to explore further that which makes the most sense. Maybe that's a foolish, childish presumption of mine, but it's one in which I hope you, as a Pilates instructor, see yourself at least having been on the peak of the high ground of the ideal, insofar as you can at least explain the idea. And from that high ground, wherever you choose to stay or be, you're still on solid ground, no matter how big the tsunami. Even if the tsunami washes over you, you will still be on the ground relative to the perspective. And then here we are, right? This is conventional, contemporary, and sometimes from there you go in a big step to something that's not. And at some point, get a grip. Get a grip is a common phrase, right? And get a hip grip could be an admonition for MMP as a perspective of Pilates. You want a hip grip because you acknowledge and see, and you want to be able to discern the difference between a grip and a clench. All right, which smoothly takes me into number 5, which is cueing the core. And cueing the core. Cueing in general for MMP is sensational, meaning, feel this and feel this, and then feel the two of them, and hopefully that takes you to an ability to take more control. Supine with your supine with your knees bent and your feet flat, arms relaxed. Push your belly out, be fat. Pull your belly in, be skinny. Push your belly out, be fat. And pull your belly in, be skinny. I don't really think I've ever encountered anybody that has not been able to at least do something in the nature of two different things in that regard. I think people know how to push their belly out pretty easily, and they also know how to pull it in as in opposition to that. That takes me to cueing the core from lifting the head. Okay, so you're supine, your head is resting in a point where you can create some rotational dynamic around the ears without taking the weight of the head off of whatever it's resting on. Either the floor that everything else is resting on, or if a person is really tight, enough padding to allow the body to start at ease. You know why that is, right? In order to be eccentric, you have to start at ease. And you establish the ability to rotate around the ears, chin up and chin down. So there's two different directions, right? Without lifting the weight of your head off of the platform it's on, rotating around the ears. Okay. Now when it comes to lifting the head, you go to two different things, and so the theme of this is, or the point of this is, as an instructor, the MMP instructor is at least highly attuned to knowing that they can instruct sensationally by giving the students something to compare sensationally that they can listen to on their own sensationally, not words that are intellectual and means thinking, but stepping a priori to thinking and just being able to execute something that provides two different sensations. Knowing where you're going in terms of understanding that the core is a grip at the hips and that you're headed towards uniform engagement in the body through oppositional rotation between axes is very empowering, especially when it comes then to, all right, so someone knows how to rotate their head in different directions. Okay, now look at the ceiling, I would say, and just press your face straight up toward the ceiling to lift your head off the surface. Feel that. And they do, and there's strain, and I know I don't usually recommend that, but once, maybe twice, do it that way. And then do the rotation you've already patterned to lift the head up off the wood. Which one's easier? Okay. The core is a grip at the hip. What makes the core a core? There you go. What makes the core a core? It's the fact that it's a grip, right? And what makes a grip? I mean, if I said, is this a grip? You know, I consider that like a press of muscles. That's a squeeze. And yes, it's a grip this way, but within MMP, the common consideration of a grip that MMP carries is that it's curled like this. This makes a grip. It's the involution that gives you the resulting control, the strength that comes from it. And from the strength of the grip, you have control. What do you think control is this as a gesture in sign language? The reason a brick can be so meaningful, so effective at helping a person engage their core is because a lot of people are tight in between their legs, and so it's very hard for them to squeeze their legs together. And you can give them a ball, something that is more pliable than a brick, but the resiliency or the rigidity of the brick allows for a more immediate contraction or engagement of the musculature. And it's later on that even with a brick, I encourage it to be muscle to muscle and not at the bony endpoints. So familiarity is key. And the familiarity of your delivery is key to the fluidity of your delivery. And so know your mat, practice your mat. And even if let's say you're just watching first time from somewhere in a remote area, find a very good recording of someone delivering the mat work in pace and tempo. And the whole mat. I'd say start so you know the whole thing, and then learn it in the chunks that you can take into beginning, intermediate, and such. But know what you're aiming for. Know there's the whole song. Squeeze your legs together to cause your exhale. Is a favorite sentence of mine. Squeeze your legs together to cause your exhale. And that presumes I have done the setup of being in the position where the mouth is open, the airway is relaxed, and all of the engagement, because you started at ease, and all of the engagement can start from the completion of the grip off of which the load is born. I'm sure you have better ways for cueing the core. But knowing that the core is a rotation at the hips, and knowing that adductors really are the essential contribution, at least in the beginning, until you get very refined, but at least in the beginning, to help you establish a grip at the hips. Stomach, buttocks, inner thighs. The origin of coronary tension is documented elsewhere. The point to understanding coronary tension is number 6, and that is that coronary tension organizes your effort. Just in the aspiration of creating the tension, it organizes the effort. And if you know how it's meant to all come together, ideally, then when you do your best to engage in that, your understanding of the target will help you hit it. Like pitching blindfold. Sure, the ball comes out of your hand and you get to throw it and enjoy the whole process of pitching. But to the extent that there might be something you're aiming at, with MMP there is the ideal, and diving into the concentration to reach for that ideal. Cornu organizes your effort and gives you sensational feedback. Cornu organizes your effort and gives you sensational feedback. You, not to what? To me? I mean, am I the feedback? No. Is it about me and my feedback I give to you while you're working, and how good I am at knowing what I'm doing as an instructor? That is this whole thing? No. Appreciate the nature of perspective, is my closing remark. Appreciate the nature of perspective. And human beings are born in the valley of innocence. And then when they have, through being alive, they accumulate experience that builds up underneath them and becomes something that elevates them out of the valley of innocence into the accumulation of their experience that has given them elevation in their perspective. And so all we do as human beings, as instructors, or writers, or artists, or as human beings in general, really, is to just hold out our light from the pillar of our perspective. For anyone navigating in sight of the light. Okay. And then as to this brand of Pilates points to, a specific experience. I know just how specific and narrow and how much more there is beyond that point of view. But it's, to me, very powerful to be able to say, I'm aiming for an experience. And as an instructor, I try to help my student or my groups or my school or my studio or my tribe or my company or my union or my insurance company all come after the fact of the experience and the relationship the experience gives you, the direct relationship that experience gives you to the experience, to the subject, and to the human being that crafted the poem, the choreography, the sequence, the exercises, and how they're performed, and the order they're performed in. Go as far afield as you want with your own point of view and indulge yourself in any way you wish in your own point of view. Look at how many people care or are interested in or acknowledge science, which is definitely a subset of the culture. Life can't live forever, and neither can this broadcast, it seems. Read between the lines, see behind the curtain, add two and two, direct your own thinking. Geist